Hello and welcome. This is a standalone segment of the Cole memo that you're watching right now. This segment was from episode 293, which I'll have linked in the show notes for this episode of the Cole memo. I'm releasing it as a standalone segment because it was a bit long. The whole episode was a bit long, so I don't expect you Illinoisans to have listened to all the federal talk we had at the beginning of that episode. But if you want to check it out, because there is some interplay between the topics, check out the show notes to see the full version of episode 293. Just to reiterate that what you're about to see was from a live broadcast that started about 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning on June 19th, 2026. This is specifically the Illinois Cannabis News segment of that episode. Enjoy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Illinois cannabis news, shall we? So I will just share an article that I recently posted on thecolememo.com. The headline is, and we'll go through this in the future with perhaps the authors or advocates behind this report, but I'll just read the headline and drop the link in the show notes so that you can read more. And I dropped this the day that it was released, and you can check it out now at thecolememo.com. Once again, the headline is Illinois has more cannabis brands than ever, but fewer companies own them. The byline is 6 years in, incumbent cannabis corporations still taking nearly 79 cents of every dollar in statewide revenue. Definitely read that article at thecolememo.com. We've got the full report and so much more in that article. So free to read. colememo.com. I'll have that link in the show notes. So folks, I went to the Ignite It Cannabis Capital Conference this week in Chicago, and I will tell you that optimism was higher than I was. There was good energy in the air. Everybody, all the industry participants definitely seemed excited, optimistic. There were still questions that remain, specifically on the medical license. So in case you missed our coverage on thecolememo.com, it's one of our top articles right now at thecolememo.com. I'm displaying the headline on screen right now. Illinois Governor Pritzker signs major cannabis and hemp reform into law. And one of the key changes was that it allows adult use dispensaries to register as medical cannabis dispensaries, and which would allow medical cannabis patients to purchase from participating adult use dispensaries at the medical tax rate. I, of course, have been asking the question, and I asked earlier, when can they get these licenses? How can they get these licenses? And I asked a few different operators while I was at the Cannabis Capital Conference, and I got so many different answers. There were some people that think they don't even need a medical license. They said, Cole, we're just modifying our tax rates and our point of sale, and we're just going to start selling to medical patients. And I said, well, how are you going to track that in the allotment system? Because this isn't just about tax. If you're selling to medical patients, this is about allotment as well. Medical patients have an allotment. The law is very clear that that medical patients are not to exceed that allotment. And so my thing with operators that were saying they don't need one, I mean, I don't know the answer, but that was my first thought, is that you say you don't need one. Well, I feel like you do, but they tell me, no, this is just something we can change on taxes. Other people are saying, no, you do need one, but it's free. And we might even share some perspectives that sort of say one or all of these perspectives that I'm sharing with you now. Because again, I heard mixed reviews. People didn't really seem to know the answer. So some people are saying yes, you do need one, and it's going to be free. And so here's my question: if you need one, and I asked this on last week's show when we broke the news that the omnibus had been passed. If you need one, how do you get one? Is there a rulemaking process for that? And can that be done before a week from tomorrow, which is the deadline for expedited processing for people that have medical licenses? I asked some people if they're concerned about that, and some of those people that I reached out to say they don't have concerns, and they pointed to the hearing on the 29th. So I don't know if they know something that we don't know about the hearing on the 29th, and maybe there's going to be another expedited processing window for incumbents that have adult use licenses, for example. They had that one for medical licenses, and that ends, I guess, a week from today. Will they have one for everybody on the 29th? And what will the processing look like for those people that miss the expedited processing window? I don't know. I will just say the reason I'm asking all of these questions is because before we legalized adult use in Illinois and before some states legalized, there was this debate about first mover advantage and how some of the large corporations were poised in many states, including Illinois, which is sort of what that first report we started off with, to benefit based off of the way the policy was written. And so this seems like another case of that. These operators, mostly have medical cannabis licenses in the states that they operate in, and so they seem ready and primed to apply for this hearing on the 29th, should they consider to. Meanwhile, some of these social equity operators or adult use license holders, it seems like there's unanswered questions. Now, there's a third group of people. Again, I'm hearing all over the map on this specific language that I'm displaying on screen right now from the colememo.com. There's another group of people that say you can apply for it, and it's going to cost $5,000. And then there's actually this fourth group of people, and I keep hearing, I don't know if this is from the language. I guess I just need to look at the language that I linked, the language of the law that was passed that I linked in this article. There's even a commenter here saying for Illinois, they set a working window of like 90 days in legislation. Hopefully they'll have a portal up for rec dispensaries to quickly apply. I keep hearing people bring up this 90-day concept, and I don't remember seeing that in the law, and so I'm not sure. Somebody else is also saying implementation by early 2027. This again just begs the question, like if this broader rescheduling decision is made on June 29th, like, and if another expedited processing window opens, will everything be in place for operators for if it were to happen by the you get my question. Obviously, if you miss the expedited processing window, I don't mean to say obviously, but I would assume it's not the end of the world. But first mover advantage, right? And that's why I kind of ask all these questions. So once again, it did seem like not many people had answers or clarity on how to get a medical license. I heard some people reaching out to representatives about how it would work, and there weren't a lot of clear answers. So I did find that super interesting, that it seemed like the perspectives were all over the map, and people were actively still, while I was speaking to them, like, hey Cole, had you heard about this? And I'm putting in this phone call to sort of figure this out. And again, it was, people did not have clarity, at least when we spoke earlier this week, which is fair. We should remind people that the omnibus was just signed a week ago from today. But I did find it notable to share that many industry participants seem to be unclear. Uh, so I'm sorry, Moody's Flower, if you're still tuned in. I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question. Unfortunately, I got many different answers to that question, which basically left me with no answers to that question. And admittedly, I'm going to have to take a deeper look at the law. You can all do that if you check out the article that I posted and was just sharing on screen a moment ago from thecolememo.com, which details the passage of the omnibus. So All right. Well, let's watch some industry reactions to the omnibus, shall we? Satisfied Mind says, "Good morning, Cole and friends. You guys are just tuning in right in time if you're tuning in for some Illinois coverage because we're about to watch reactions from Illinois cannabis operators, and we're going to watch Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton's speech that was given at the Cannabis Capital Conference here in the state of Illinois. I had a brief interaction with the Lieutenant Governor after the speech. We'll talk a little bit about that to close the show. But for now, let's hear some industry reactions from the omnibus. Starting off with Berwin Tompkins from I Got the Munchies, who actually gave me a sucker, which I'm not gonna have this morning, but I do plan to have soon, and I actually plan to have it on the podcast. We'll talk about how effective it is. I'm pretty sure I'll have to ask him the dosage on the sucker again, but he sells infused suckers and other things in the state of Illinois, and this is his reaction to the omnibus. So I am at Ignited Cannabis Capital Conference with
Berwin Tompkins of I Got the Munchies.
And Berwin, how are you feeling? The omnibus, the cannabis omnibus just passed. It's been in the works for like 6 years, man.
Yeah.
What's your take on the whole thing? How are you feeling about it?
I think it was a great bill passage. I think it's a game changer for many of the social equity companies that were looking to open, some that are open and struggling right now. I think it was a great bill for everybody. Everybody got something.
Yeah, absolutely. Any specific provisions you point to that you think like that you may find beneficial? I know some people talk about the medical at all dispensaries, but yeah, anything you wanted to talk about specifically?
I think the increase in the amount that you can purchase now, so the purchase limits being increased, I think that's going to help the stores a lot. That's going to help the patients a lot. That's going to help the people that are producing product. Now they'll be able to increase or potentially make a margin now. So I think that's the biggest thing, that now it creates opportunity as opposed to people had a lot of uncertainty going on in the business.
Yeah. And lastly, just to give you a little bit of space here before we close, people can find your products in the stores. You want to just shout out some of the ones that people can look out for and maybe try to find themselves?
Okay, we have I Got the Munchies, lollipops. We made sure Carl got some. He'll let you know about those.
Absolutely.
Our biggest partner is Stash and Cookies, so you'll find us there. Clip. No.
Cool. So, but basically, you can look for at a dispensary near you. I Got the Munchies.
Yes.
That's how you find your stuff.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Berwin.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So that was Berwin Tompkins. And next up, we've got Brad Zerman, who runs a dispensary and consumption lounge in Danville, Illinois. All right. I am standing here with Brad Zerman from 7 Point. Really quick, tell us, you're a licensed cannabis operator in the state. Tell us about what you do, where we can find your operations, and then I want to get your take on the omnibus.
I'm Brad from 7 Point.
Hold that a little closer for me.
I'm Brad from 7 Point. We have a social equity-owned cannabis dispensary and vinyl music store in Danville, Illinois. We're right on the border of Indiana, about 40 minutes south of Champaign. And we have a cannabis consumption lounge with a stage and live music and karaoke and open mic and a lot of community events in the space. Awesome. Definitely check it out. 7 Point in Danville. Now, your take on the cannabis omnibus, it's, I would say, one of the biggest movements in cannabis policy. It's been great. It's been great already. Some of the items that were passed are more complex that are going to require the Department of Financial Professional Regulation to give us some guidance and actually like how we could technically do some of the stuff, like using technology, but like selling to med patients. Yeah, like selling to med patients. They're going to have to like set that up with all the POS providers like Dutchie so that when a med customer comes in, it'll recognize, we can scan their card, it'll recognize they're a licensed med patient, and then give them the 2% tax or whatever it is instead of the 30 or 40. So something like that, I just read today, it might take about 90 days to get that going. But things like the limit, we were able to capitalize on the next day after Governor Pritzker signed it, because that's like a control in the Dutch POS platform that we have access to. So we just increased it all by category. And on Friday, we had our second best non-holiday Friday of all time.
Nice.
Saturday, we had our best day ever, but there were some other reasons why. But yeah, we're happy to be in with the new laws. We're also ready to capitalize on the drive-through. So when we built our building a couple years ago, we planned that out with the city so that we would have the window and the drive-through booth just like Wendy's or anyone else. And so we have the lane and the booth and the glass and the window and all that. But we just decided that if there's too many customers in line, we're going to need to figure out the flow behind the building. So we have to take out a curb, and we're in touch with the city now to make sure that we do everything that they want. But we just bought like a line painter for like painting arrows instead of the parking stripes that are on there right now. So we're already like making moves to get the drive-through open, and we hope to be able to use the part of the law about staying open late. Now you can stay open until 2 a.m. We're currently open on the weekends till 10. So we're considering like Wendy's or Taco Bell, the stores open till 10, but the windows open late. And then we might sell like a couple snacks in the window, coffee, things like that to make it just more interesting.
Very cool. Now, I know that this has been like, let's say 6 years in the making, and we just got past the finish line. And as you just said, some things still have to be worked out. What's next? Like, do you have other pain points that weren't addressed? Like
the capital, which we've just been talking about before we went live right here, or whatever, the capital issue is a really big issue for us. We built a super expensive brand new building in a rural area during COVID with 40% inflation on construction. So now we're paying the price of that. So it would be great if we could increase our revenue more. I also think that the part of the law that will help us is with the smoke shops not being able to sell flower and vapes. We don't really know how much that interfered, but we expect that that's going to help things a lot. And then we're on the border of Indiana. So nationally, like at the federal level, when things happen in November on that might help us even more, because the Indiana smoke shops would then be tightened up and not be able to do some stuff.
Makes sense. Well, thank you.
I think they did a good job with everything. I mean, I think there's really a lot of new ways that patients have access to cannabis, the medical, the drive-through, the curbside. That, like, people are medical, they need drive-through and curbside. Why do they want to get out of the car? Especially in Illinois in the winter time, is really, people get hurt. They aren't disabled in the winter, just getting out of the car. So that's going to be cool. And the for us, especially being on the border, that the out-of-state limits were increased. That's really, even if you think about it, an environmental issue. Like, yeah, okay, everyone wants to smoke more cannabis, but some people are disabled out of state. It's hard for them to get there. If they can buy more, it'll be easier. But environmentally, gas prices are so high, and people are traveling like 2 hours or more to get to our store every day. So that'll work.
Awesome. Well, Brad, thank you for your time, and
Thanks
I look
for
forward to having you again.
Sounds good. In the lounge.
Yes, in the lounge.
Excellent.
All right, cheers, man.
Okay, so that was Brad Zerman's perspective. We are live, folks, so drop your comments as we continue through. Next up, we've got just a couple more licensees' perspectives. Next up, we've got Talvin White, who I've actually not spoke to before, and then we'll be closing out our licensee perspectives with J.R. Fleming. Then we have a legal perspective, and we'll close out with the speech and I can maybe tell you a little bit about my interaction with the lieutenant governor of the state of Illinois. And kind of crazy to talk to uh, Governor Pritzker's right hand person for but a brief moment. I hope she recalls what I briefly said to her, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's continue with licensees' perspectives on the cannabis omnibus. Here is Talvin White. I am at the Cannabis Capital Conference in Chicago speaking with
Talvin White, CEO and founder of Cannafarm.
And where can people find more information about Cannafarm online?
TheCannafarm.com or my personal Instagram at MilkyC5 cash.
Perfect. And we'll put links to that in the show notes, folks. Friday of last week, pretty historic. Governor Pritzker signed cannabis legislation into law. I'm getting licensees' perspective on the legislation. What are your thoughts? The good, bad, the ugly?
I mean, anything that they can do for us will help. A lot of good things were in that bill. The main focus for a lot of us was for the cohabitation of craft grows. That didn't happen, so that's unfortunate. We really need that, but we are happy that infusers get to cohabitate, that retails get to cohabitate with infusers and such. So that's a good thing. And also, they doubled the amount that you can possess, so that was also a good thing.
Absolutely. I'm guessing you have retail. Are you excited about the prospect of being able to sell like to medical patients, stuff like that?
Yeah, but I also know what that entails. That will only go under the purview of the medical companies until the governor decides that falls into adult use. So it's going to take a while for that to be actually implemented,
Gotcha.
In my opinion.
Really quick, have you been given any clarity on how you would be able to do that, like serve to a medical patient, or are you still waiting to get
I understand how it would happen. I mean, you can get DEA certified once that procedure is in place, but you have to wait for the procedure to get in place first.
Understood.
In my opinion, why would you do the other first?
Makes sense. Any other general thoughts on the omnibus itself?
No, like I said before, it was a lot of good, but the main focus was the cohabitation of the craft grows. It's a lot of people who have transport licenses and craft grows, and those are the ones who are really suffering right now.
Yeah.
So,
and that is going to be my last question. A lot of these policy proposals, I would say a few of them that lived to see the light of the governor's signature were proposals that have been a part of the omnibus for years. Like you say, that even the cohabitation, that idea, I believe, had been part of previous proposals, wasn't a part of this one. So I think going forward, you would like to see that as part of a change. But I guess I wanted to ask you, and I've been asking people this, I know we just got this across the line and it's been hard fought for years, but what's next? Besides, you mentioned the cohabitation, but is there any other pain points that you feel should be addressed in the market that people haven't talked about yet?
The costs and fees for people to operate always trickle down to the consumer. So I feel like education and the consumers need to get more involved in lobbying. And I feel like that those changes need to be made sooner rather than later.
Well said. Well, Talvin, thank you. Any last thoughts before we go?
That'll be it.
Cool. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. That was Talvin White. I just want to thank everybody again for taking the time to speak with me at the Ignite Cannabis Capital Conference. This next perspective is that of Willie J.R. Fleming, who has called into the show in the past, if I'm not mistaken. I feel like he was kicked back smoking in that episode. In this episode, we are standing in front of the Marriott outside of the Ignite Cannabis Capital Conference. In the cool kids section where everybody's smoking, right? So here is J.R. Fleming's perspective on the cannabis omnibus. Standing here with
Willie J.R. Fleming.
How's it going?
Good. Site can, y'all know what it is. Site can, if anybody can, if I can, you can, we can, Site can.
Hell yeah.
I represent Public Square, CEO of a craft grow cultivation social equity license, infuser transportation license, SWIC, South and West Side Couriers of Chicago, social equity license holder, trade association president.
If anybody wanted to support what you have going on, like as a consumer or anyway, where could they find that information?
Definitely Instagram, Willie J.R. Fleming on Instagram, or I am J.R. Fleming on Instagram. Willie J.R. Fleming on Facebook, and then jr@chican.com. Chican with the 2 N. jr@chicann.com.
Great. And I'll have that in the description for folks if it helps. What is your take on the cannabis omnibus package, which I will just say is, what is it, 6 years? 6 years in the making?
6 years in the making. You know, SB 3222.
Yeah.
Finally, do some do. Oh man, my take is excitement, happiness. You know, with any legislation or bills, it can always be bittersweet, right? The concessions are always made, and some things happen and some things don't. So things that have happened, I will talk about what happened for us is definitely the co-location. Definitely a big fan of the co-location with infusers, transporters, craft growers, the dispensary being able to co-locate. With the exception of craft grow and craft grow. So I'm definitely excited about that. I'm definitely excited about the laws around how we, how can I say it? How we go after funds that would assist social equity businesses. So one of the biggest things in the bill that I was telling people to me was the fact that it gives DCO powers to figure out avenues to support social equity license holders, right? And I think that outside of the direct forgivable loan program, which is a good program, I think that gives hope that our legislators really understood what it means by legislative intent on wanting to see social equity licenses be activated. So giving DCO that power to become an intermediary with some lenders and things like that, have conversation with financial institutions to assist in the lending for social equity businesses. I'm really happy about that commitment from the state. Definitely look forward to working with lenders, banks, and everybody in that conversation. I'm also excited about, the regulations around THCA products, smokable, intoxicating hemp products. I'm definitely excited about that. We can put to rest the accessibility issue that folks had with minors accessing these things that had grown person effects. So I'm definitely glad about that happening with the hemp. I'm happy about, really protecting Chicagoans and people in Cook County and the state of Illinois from bad products, unregulated product, untested product. I'm upset that this might hurt some small businesses who didn't get a chance to participate in the cannabis industry. But as always, in any bill or legislation, there's, some good things. There's some things that could have been done better. But I'm glad that this has happened for the most part. Illinois made promises to social equity folks like myself that this was going to be a profitable industry for us. It was going to be accessible. And I think they finally started to live up on some of the commitments legislatively. I mean, it's been 6 years in the making. 6 years in the making, for this to happen, so we're really excited about that more than anything. I also wanted to talk about, another one of the provisions in the bill. Again, I'm a cultivator. It's the 14,000 square feet of canopy I now get to utilize on my initial setup, which would make my company more attractable to investors and those looking to do it. Another thing I'm excited about in the bill is that there is a pathway for hemp THCA businesses selling above 0.4 and THC drink companies to partner with cultivators and infusers to get their products to market, tested, and regulated just like the rest of us. So I'm glad there's a pathway for some of these businesses to partner with existing social equity license holders and companies to make sure they can still participate in the market. So I think that's a plus in the legislation as well that we was really excited about. As a medical patient, I would tell you this. I'm most excited about being able to get that discount at every dispensary now. The designation of medical for dispensaries, excited about that as a patient. The extended hours as a patient has been a blessing, finally, the extended hours. So yeah, I'm happy about all of things.
Awesome. Any other notable things from the omnibus that make you excited or that you had thoughts about?
I mean, the biggest things that happen in that bill that really not just helps me, because I'm almost up to date in everything I do in terms of fees and regulations, but it helps a lot of struggling businesses who wasn't able to make their licenses fees. It gives them a window of economic hardship that they can apply for. I mean, they get to keep the licenses to they can actually activate the license or activate access to funds that will help them get operational, like some of us has been able to do. So yeah, I'm excited about the waiver fees, the power it gives IDOA. I'm also excited about the 75 new licenses that's going to come out as a pathway to folks to get in the market. I think our legislators set a standard, a precedent again, like they did when they passed the first CRTA and 1443 and the transporter waivers. I think they hit it pretty good this one. A lot of folks should be happy that it's actually done, signed by the governor, and we can get to work now.
Well said. So I know we just got this past the line, and I know it's taken 6 years to do it, as you started off with, roughly. What's next? Because obviously this addresses a lot and it addresses some pain points. But I guess if I wanted to give you the space as an operator, are there things that you think of when you think? Because this list, the 14,000 square feet, the medical at all. So on and so forth. I'm not going to go through it all, but it's been the same each year. And so I've been trying to figure out what's the new list. Do you have anything to submit for the new list?
So one of the things that's going to be on the new list, we got to have a real conversation around reclassification, right? You know, because of the state has mirrored the legislation federally in this bill as well, we have to talk about reclassification and if the DA designation really works for everybody who has a license, right? And so we're proposing on our list, next to-do list, is definitely to sit down with a bunch of law firms that's working around this, Denton, Greenspoon, Milder, and a lot of these shops, UIC Law, and have this conversation with social equity license holders and folks in the industry about who this reclassification will benefit, who this medical designation will benefit. Do everybody want to be under the federal scrutiny of the DEA to get this reclassification for their company? You know, we want to have real conversation with legal experts to see how this should be done locally as we make the transition federal.
Gotcha. And last, anything else to add to the list, just to give you more space?
I'm trying to see, man, there's so much going on. Wow. I think I will say this. I talked with a lot of the funders in the space while I've been at this conference, right?
Yeah.
About DCO ability to work with intermediaries and things like that. What does that mean in terms of investment? I talk with a lot of companies that's coming from the CBD space as well.
Yeah. And hold this closer to your mouth. Yeah.
I talk with a lot of companies that's from the CBD space as well.
Yeah.
You know, about what does this transition mean? And I'm hearing from both sides that there is investment opportunities, right?
Yeah.
There's definitely a blessing that social equity companies can now go out to some CBD shops, vape shops, THC beverages companies and say, look, I'm willing to partner if you will help me, you know, build out this license, right? Yeah. There's an opportunity to bridge them two markets together. So my list is pretty much full, you know, both of what we need to do on the governmental side and then next what we need to do on the community side and the operator side, right?
Yeah.
But for veto session, I do expect to have a conversation around increasing the revenue that DCO gets from the state of Illinois, given the fact that each year, correct me if I'm wrong, Cole, the state get at least $150, $200 million extra projected tax revenue they didn't see coming, unprojected tax revenue. We like to see some of that money go into a bigger DCO pot. I think that'd be a great thing if the state got creative around increasing the funding pot so that we can really get a lot of folks operational. Because the caveat and the benefit is financially advantageous to support social equity businesses. We're going to become tax-paying businesses at an alarming tax rate. So yeah, the next thing on the list is definitely going to get the state to increase funding for DCO. And let's work on reducing taxes on cannabis so people can start running from Illinois and shop at home.
Well said. And this is my last question to close. Do you think anything, you know, the criminalization, I know you as an advocate probably are aware of this, the continued criminalization of cannabis, I should say the criminalization of cannabis continues in the state of Illinois, particularly in the south and west sides of Chicago, according to like our own state reports. And it's a variety of reasons, you know, many people try to attribute to, whether it be home grow, the odor-proof container requirement, or other things. Like I say, it's hard to really pinpoint why criminalization of continues. But yeah, any thoughts on that topic? Because people continue to be arrested.
So I think that becomes an issue that we got to that again that has been the issue since we went rec, right?
Yeah.
And in the bill itself, it's stated it's supposed to be like the least thing sought out by police department is to criminalize weed, right?
Yeah.
To like launch super active weed investigations, right? Or to be locking folks up, right? So I think it became the question of the state did their part. It's really getting hard down on these local municipalities about what we call police practices, right? And then really getting the data district by district, right? To say, no, these ain't just practices happening. You know what I'm saying? Standardized. They're like stop and frisk, right? Just driving while black, possessing while black, right? It's been overly criminalized in the south and west side of Chicago and in black communities. You know what I'm saying? And we have to show the police that they have to partake in better police practices. Because when you look at 85% of the cases, 80% of the cases, the state is not winning prosecution on them. They're dropping a lot of them.
Right.
So what is the point of arrest? You know what I'm saying? So I think it was really like pushing on the local municipalities that enforce it. And I know there's challenges in Chicago, Naperville, and several outstanding suburbs where people tend to go to entertainment events at.
Okay, gotcha.
So we definitely got to do some work, like, as a community, businesses and folks in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, JR, thank you. Any closing words before we go? I know
That's
we'll
right.
connect again,
We gonna connect again, man. Thank you, Cole. I want to thank you for doing what you do first and foremost. And shout out to everybody that's supporting the Cole memo, getting the facts from the people who actually in the industry doing the work. I just want to let folks know, man, like, everything is different when change comes, right? Let's give it an opportunity and let's invest more in Illinois, y'all. Stop running on the state buying your bud.
Cheers. Thank you, JR. Yep.
All right.
Are you just filtering
Whoops, sorry about that, folks. We're live, so technical difficulties they occur occasionally. Well, that was J.R. Fleming's reaction to the cannabis omnibus. Comment below. Are you guys finding value in this episode of the Cole Memo? We've almost got over 25 listeners across different platforms. I see people on YouTube, people on Twitter, some people on Instagram. You can comment below and let me know what you're thinking. Satisfied Mind says, awesome to hear these perspectives. Gives me some optimism for the future, hearing their excitement too. Yeah, I will say that one thing I was told by a person that, we weren't necessarily on the record. So they said, Cole, next year, Illinois cannabis is going to look so completely different. And hey, and I will just say, Satisfied Mind, I don't know when you tuned in, but I said, and I started this whole segment off, that the optimism regarding the passage of this omnibus was almost as high as I was that day. So in other words, just jokes aside, people were very optimistic at the Ignite Cannabis Capital Conference regarding the passage of the omnibus, but also how rescheduling could potentially tie into that, and how, they could, potentially benefit from that. And you went right where I was going to go, Satisfied Mind. You say so many questions just regarding the federal changes, let alone on a state level. Yeah, well said. So speaking of the changes at a state level and at a federal level, I thought, who better to get a perspective from than a legal professional who's been on this show in the past. They've sued the state of Illinois successfully. And yeah, let's bring on their perspective. It's Ali Jubileer here. Here's their perspective from the Ignite Cannabis Capital Conference. And then we're going to close out the show, I think, with Lieutenant Governor Stratton's speech. So that's a super exciting. It's always exciting when Illinois officials talk about cannabis in Illinois. So I'm really excited to show you all this speech because I've not seen it posted anywhere else online yet, and I was able to capture it. So here, stay tuned for that. But for now, we're bringing Ali Jubileer back onto the show for her perspective on the cannabis omnibus. Here it is.
All right, I am at the Ignite Cannabis Capital Conference in Chicago, Illinois, with Ali Jubileer, who's been on the show in the past. This last week, the cannabis omnibus, after I would say about 6 years,
finally came to pass. It was signed into law with several provisions.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've given it a gander. What's your reaction? Good, bad, and ugly. Feel free to go through it.
Yeah, there's a lot of like major stuff in there, and there is good and there is bad. As I think everybody knows, I've been involved in a pro bono case for cannabis transporters, independent transporters in Illinois. And, I think they did not really get, some of the relief that they were seeking. For example, some kind of mandatory, percentage for independent transporters to move cannabis in Illinois. There's some good there with some changes to storage, but there's definitely been some concern about whether certain large cannabis transportation companies are going to be set up to have even more of like a monopoly, in the state. So I think people are worried about that. Obviously, the hemp stuff is huge, right? This has been percolating in the state of Illinois for a really long time, whether hemp is going to get, banned or not. And obviously we have that happening now in that bill. We still don't know what's going to happen come November at the federal level, but in the meantime, this is where we are in Illinois. And that has good and bad in it.
And a quick question on that.
Yeah.
My understanding of that is because of course there's some amendments at the federal level. My understanding is that since we've codified what we've codified, that even if something did hypothetically change at a federal level and maybe the ban was moved back or did not happen at all, maybe that's my wishful thinking on that one, but that the proposed language that could take effect in November, it will be the law of the land in Illinois.
Yeah, because the federal government would always just set the floor, right? And then the states are free to do what they want to do on top of that in terms of their additional restrictions and where they're allowing products to be sold. So, yeah, it's that's a huge, huge change in Illinois from where we are today. Obviously there's smoke shops all over the city. There's, partnerships that have been created with event spaces like Navy Pier, United Center. All that stuff is kind of, on the line right now. So it'll be interesting, to see what happens with hemp in Illinois in the future, and whether, for example, you see new license categories being created within, the cannabis regulatory framework to allow for liquor stores to sell like THC beverages that are hemp derived and event spaces. So that'll be really interesting. And then the square footage increase, like in the craft grows, that's a big one. So just, there's a lot there. I'm glad to see changes after all these years, and some movement, but we'll see how it all shakes out.
I have an interesting question, and I'm not expecting you to have an answer on this one. It relates to the medical cannabis at all dispensary provision.
Oh,
so,
yeah, huge,
right? And it's the idea, the way I read it, is that if you have an adult use license, it reads something like you can opt to get a medical license.
Mm-hmm.
I've asked several licensees, including, one of the biggest trade associations in the state, and I've not gotten a clear answer on, do they have to apply for a medical license? Does there have to be rulemaking to apply for that medical license?
Well, and is it even a medical license, or is it just some ability to sell, even though you're not a medically licensed cannabis dispensary? Is there just going to be some provision that allows you to sell? We don't know. Right,
and that's the speculate. Some yesterday were just telling me, Cole, we're just trying to modify our POS so that it's not charging the adult use tax. But I'm saying, well, there's the concept of a patient allotment, and so like that has to feed into that system.
So is everything allotted for patients now? Is that kind of what you're thinking? Like,
I just don't know either.
I don't think. I think we're all flying a little blind on some of it, and we'll have to see. Like even the security stuff, you might not need a third party security company anymore, but you still need security, right? And so does that mean, like, can a cannabis company just like say you're a bud tender today and tomorrow you're a security guard? Yeah. Or is there are there other kind of requirements for security going forward?
And just to dig up more questions we may not have answers to before we go a little bit more on the medical thing. Okay, so 2 weeks from the date of signage is when the expedited processing window for medical, the DEA expedited processing window ends. Not to say that they wouldn't process any applications going forward, but it would
I get the sense, no longer be expedited.
Mm.
I think that's notable, depending on the answers to the questions we've raised. Like, will our adult use licensees, that if they opt, like, will that all happen in a timely manner so that they can meet that deadline?
Yeah, you mean to register with the
register. And of course, there's the elephant in the room of the June 29th hearing,
Right.
whether
it's even going to go forward or not, right?
Yeah, the comprehensive rescheduling, if you will.
Right.
But it's just an interesting question because, and I'll just like put it this way, it seems like another instance in which, let's just say, the originally established operators might get another leg up, expedited processing, and it just so happens others can, and I'm obviously, we don't have answers, so I'm not saying this as if they're conclusions. I'm asking these questions so that hopefully people are aware and maybe can avoid that.
No, I agree with you. And I mean, let's say the hearings do go forward June 29th, and let's say they're not successful.
Yeah.
Let's say that recreational cannabis remains a Schedule 1 drug while medical is Schedule 3. What does that mean at the state level then? Do they start issuing medical licenses, and does that happen immediately, or is there a gap in time at which point the medical licensees become much more valuable, than the adult use licenses? So it's a big question mark. I mean, we'll know more, I suppose, as we get into the summer here, but lots of questions, both at the state and federal level, left unanswered.
Yeah. I'll end with a short one, unless, you have other thoughts to add. I thought it was notable and was completely surprised to see the possession limit increase for both in-staters and out-of-staters.
Yeah.
I've talked to legal professionals that our friends from out of state will come here, and most people think, well, in most states you can buy an ounce, right? In the state of Illinois, up until now, for out-of-staters, it was half an ounce, which would actually get people in trouble. So I bring it up just to celebrate I don't mean even to say a small win.
Yeah.
It is a win.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
I mean, look, when you put forth a bill like this, there's good and bad, and you're not going to satisfy everybody. It's all about compromises, right? But you got to celebrate in cannabis. You got to celebrate the wins.
Yeah, I'll take what I can
however
get.
small they are. Yeah, exactly. And however long they take. So yeah, definitely great. Lots of good stuff in there for sure.
Yeah. Well, hey, I always appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I'd love to have you on the podcast again. But before we go, just any other thoughts on the omnibus or anything in general, or we cover it?
No, I think it's just going to be interesting because I think, people need a little more guidance on how this thing is going to work. And there's a lot of questions yet to be answered. So I just hope that I hope the IDFPR and the IDOA are really working hard behind the scenes to answer a lot of those questions so that there's not a lot of confusion and ambiguity, because we've lived in that world for so long. It'd be nice to have a little more certainty for everyone going forward. So,
well said.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
Let's restart that. I was muted. Let's restart that. Whoops, we're live. Okay, so that was the last perspective we will be sharing right now, the last reaction that we'll be sharing. We just got a comment, and yep, thank you, Satisfied Mind. I'll have to edit that out post-production. So our next clip we will watch from the Ignite It Cannabis Capital Conference is a speech from the Illinois Lieutenant Governor, Juliana Stratton. Notably, Juliana Stratton made one of the first cannabis purchases here in the state of Illinois. I'm displaying that on screen right now. I'll read from CBS News. Legal marijuana sales brought out thousands to make their first legal pot purchase, and at least one is a prominent politician. Illinois Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton got into the spirit of the historic day by making her own pot purchase in the form of edibles. Pretty sure I know, or this woman right here has been on the podcast in the past, by the way, like way back in the day. I believe her name is Bree. I could be wrong. Sorry, Bree, if that's you or whoever you are, and I'm forgetting your name, I do apologize. Man, time has flown doing this podcast. Okay, so just a little bit of background. Another thing to add is that Lieutenant Governor Stratton is actually just recently won the Democratic primary to run for senator, like at the federal level here in Illinois. So I don't know who she will be running against, but I'm hearing she is quite likely to be the next state senator for Illinois. So she will be representing us in Washington. And we're about to play her perspective right here on the show. Like I said, I've not seen this panel air yet. So just as background, this panel is moderated by John Sullivan, who is the Executive Vice President of Public Affairs at Cresco Labs. Also joining on stage is Barrington Rutherford, the CEO and founder of Strategic Capital Cannabis Investments. Here is the panel, and I'll just say really quick, I apologize for the camera quality in this specific speech. And you'll probably see me in frame. I was trying to take pictures, and I'm a one-man band. Again, I do this all myself. And so I'm like trying to record it while I'm taking pictures. And if any of you are out there and like want to try to help with the show, maybe we can talk about logistically how that could happen. I don't ever ask for help, and I've been told that maybe I should start. So, but yeah, just wanted to say, I think the quality is just fine. I'll put on closed captioning so that in case you do have audio issues. I also want to just say for the earlier interviews, I apologize. You may have noticed that I was coming through one channel and they were coming through another channel instead of it coming through both channels. So if those interviews sounded weird and maybe you were listening to your earphones, yeah, that might have been why. But without further ado, here is Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton's discussion, her panel at Ignite Cannabis Capital Conference.
We are so excited about this event that we are moving very quickly. So Illinois has been an amazing state in the cannabis space. And how many people here are from Illinois?
Yeah, yeah!
Yeah, go Illinois!
Yeah, yeah!
All right, I'm from Illinois too, so this is my hometown, and I am so excited to be here for her to be joining us up on stage. So let's give it up for John Sullivan and Barrington Rutherford.
Be in the building.
Yep, this thing's definitely perfect.
Let's go to you here, John, and then the governor. How about that?
Sounds good. Well, thank you everybody for sticking around this late here towards the end of the conference, but I think this is definitely one of the more exciting parts. I'm happy to introduce right now to all of you the Lieutenant Governor from the state of Illinois, Juliana Stratton. Yeah. All goes well in the next United States Senator. That's absolutely correct.
Not that anyone in this room is interested about something happening at the federal level, is it?
No questions about that at all today, for sure. I'm just going to give a little background. Unless you'd like to, well, let me give the little bio, and then you can jump in. So, the Lieutenant Governor was born on the south side of Chicago. She grew up there, went on to the University of Illinois for undergrad. Yes. There we go. We're in the right spot. Yep. I'm proud to say, went to my alma mater for law school, DePaul Law School in Chicago. And then embarked on what can only be counted as a fascinating career, not just with legal work, but with really social justice work. headed up so many criminal justice reform efforts in Illinois. It's really hard to count them all, but certainly was on the Cook County Justice Advisory Commission and has led legislative efforts in Illinois in her time as a state rep and also as lieutenant governor to really change the way we go about criminal justice in the state, and has been met with great success. As I said, in addition to law career, was a member of the Illinois House, became lieutenant governor in 2018, was the first Black female lieutenant governor for the state of Illinois, so a real trailblazer and groundbreaker for sure. And like I said before, knock on wood, the next U.S. Senator from the state of Illinois. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Thank you for that warm welcome.
So, Lieutenant Governor, this room is filled with the founders, investors, operators, and service providers that really help to build the Illinois cannabis industry, which is one of the largest and most successful cannabis programs in the country. What makes you most proud when you look at the cannabis industry here in Illinois today?
Well, first of all, thank you for your partnership. I think that, anytime you start talking about building something from the ground up, it's important. And for those of you who may know, you heard a little bit about my background, but I come from the restorative justice world. It's work that I've done throughout my entire career. And we always talk about how the wisdom is in the room. And so when I come into a room like this and know the role that each of you have played in helping to build the industry in whatever role that you play, it's important that your voices have been a part of this process and that we continue to keep your voices right at the center so that we can continue to improve and make correction wherever we need to. And so I think when I really consider what I'm most proud of is how Governor Pritzker and I and members of the General Assembly were very intentional about centering equity in this work. We knew that there had been so many communities that had been disproportionately not just impacted, but harmed by the so-called war on drugs. And we know the impact that it had. So many communities that faced higher rates of incarceration, so many communities that because of that would be boxed out of being able to reap any of the benefits from this industry that we were hoping would continue to build and expand and grow. And we made sure that as we built this, that we weren't thinking just about the tax revenues, we weren't just thinking about the business case, but we were thinking about how to make sure that not just the voices of those who have been left out or left behind, but they would have a real pathway to opportunity, a pathway to entrepreneurship, a pathway to being a part of this industry and the legal industry. And so I think that's what I'm most proud of. And I think it's, at a time when we know that if you're going to push any type of policy that centers equity, it does require intention. It does require someone saying, this is going to be what's important to us, and we're going to build it in this way. We're going to write it into the legislation, and that's what we did. And do we have, there are more areas to grow. We absolutely know that, but I'm very proud of what we have done so far and where we are and where we are going. And thanks to all of you for being a part of it.
And to that end, I'm curious, you were instrumental certainly in the legislation passing here in Illinois. You have a deep background in criminal justice reform, and you bought the first cannabis sale on January 1st, 2020. I'm curious, as somebody who grew up on the south side of Chicago, was seeing the war on drugs firsthand, has done all that work. What was that feeling like that day and when the law was signed and you and Governor Pritzker put it all into action, and how do you think we're doing?
Yeah, I think that, that particular day of the bill signing, what I knew is that we were in a room with so many people who had either been penalized, criminalized, people who never thought that this was a possibility. And it came along, by the way, and we didn't mention this, but 800,000 records being expunged in the state of Illinois as well. And so there was an immense sense of pride and knowing that we were doing something that was really groundbreaking. The fact that we did it legislatively as well was another piece. And if I'm not mistaken, we were the first state in the nation to do so legislatively. So, I live on the south side of Chicago, I live in Bronzeville, and I think about communities all across our state that they know that they were on the end of sort of the punitive end. And here we were as a state, the governor of our state, the lieutenant governor of our state, legislators, members of the General Assembly, so many other advocates and others who had been working on this for so long who said, this is not right. And we're going to right the wrongs that have happened. And while there were lots of other benefits, and we see that economically, we knew that we were doing something very special here in Illinois. And it was just one of those moments that we knew this would be a part of our legacy. It was very early on in our administration, by the way. It was 2020. We were elected in 2018. We were sworn in 2019, and we had big ideas. And I think that the other thing that I think it just reminds me is that I've come to see so much in government, in politics, in this space that we find ourselves in. People really do have a tendency to think small. They really do have a tendency to think about what we cannot do, how it's too hard, or what are people going to think, and how is this going to work? And it was just a testament to what happens when you think big, when you bring the right people to the table, when you have the right intentions, and you do the work. And we did it. And this is what the outcome.
So not only did you do it through this legislative process, but the approach to the state revenue is also very different than we've seen really anywhere else. So the R3 program so far has directed over $300 million into communities here in Illinois. What's the impact that you're seeing of that investment?
Well, I hope you'll give me the grace to talk about and brag about the R3 program a little bit, the Restore, Reinvest, and Renew program, because it was written into the legislation that 25% of the tax revenues would be invested in communities that have been most harmed by the war on drugs. And it's important. This is a program that is housed in the Office of the Lieutenant Governor. We built it from the ground up, and I chair the board for the Restore, Reinvest, I'm grateful, you all know that there's a lot of acronyms in government. I'm grateful we call it the R3 program, but the Restore, Renew, and Reinvest program, this is work that has been close to my heart for the entire time that I've been serving as Lieutenant Governor, certainly since we passed the legislation. First of all, let me just say that in the true spirit of restorative justice, there are people on the R3 board with lived experience. So there are people who are helping to make decisions and help with the governance of this program who have been directly impacted, their justice impacted, and they know the real harm of over-incarceration that so many of our, particularly Black and brown communities, have experienced. So I'm proud that we are intentional about making sure that those communities are represented. There are communities all across the state, in every corner of our state, not just the Chicagoland area, but downstate, central Illinois, all around the state is represented in R3. And as you just mentioned, and we had our board meeting today where we just announced our 4th cohort of grantees. It'll be formally announced on Monday, so I'm giving you a little heads up. But we voted for the last round of funding, which is adding $50 million, a total of $330 million that is now going to address issues like violence prevention, re-entry services for people who are returning from incarceration, civil legal aid, youth development, and economic development. And I'm telling you, this work is a game changer. And I think one of the things that I've been really proud of with this program is that we even looked at the way grant making was made through the state of Illinois, because there are so many hoops that you have to jump through. And we knew that a lot of these organizations, the first round of R3 grants funded a lot of the larger organizations, and some of them did not have the kind of connections with communities that we were hoping to fund. And so we came back to the drawing board with the second cohort, and we set aside funds so that organizations that were newer, or maybe less than 2 years old, or had a budget that was a smaller budget, because a lot of these organizations don't have grant writers. They're just people who love their communities and are trying to serve their communities. And we really made a difference in what grant making looks like. We extended the time for them to apply for the grants. We've made sure that if they collaborate with other organizations, that they could do that work together and get some additional points. And once again, we gave extra points for equity, so that who's leading the work, who are you serving, who's working in the organization. These programs are creating jobs in communities all across our state. And I want you to know that you're partners to this work. That's what's important. That's the message that we need to keep spreading. That yes, we can focus on what needs to happen with building business, seeing growth in the industry, but we're doing it while we're also investing in communities that have higher rates of incarceration, higher rates of poverty, higher rates of violence. And it is the solution to public safety. It is how we create safer communities. It's by investing. And here in Illinois, we've made the choice to use the legal cannabis industry as one of those mechanisms for creating safer communities. And to me, that is a story we must tell.
It's absolutely a great story. The work's not done, especially on the federal level, for sure. Barrington and I were talking earlier today, in Pennsylvania last year, Democrat governor, Democrat House, Republican Senate, 12,000 people were arrested for cannabis possession last year. This is still happening throughout the country. Pennsylvania is not unique. There are still a lot of states that have not even decriminalized cannabis. It's hard to get 60 votes in the United States Senate, but you're going to be there. What are your thoughts on going there with your background in criminal justice reform, with your background in doing this work? What do you see as your priorities there? How are you going to go about traversing the United States Senate on these issues?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would love to see us legalize cannabis on the federal level. Let's start with that. And I think it's important because as I always talk about it through this restorative justice lens, we're going to keep seeing what you're seeing. When you talk about on a state-by-state basis, where some that have not decriminalized, some that have not legalized, of course, and people are still getting arrested, especially, and incarcerated. And I know that in every one of those states, primarily, depending on demographics, but in a lot of these states, again, we're still seeing the racial disparities happen. So I think that that's one of the things. In the meantime, that is, we have a ways to go, but in the meantime, we have to look at how do we make sure, like when we look at investing in this particular industry and how we can make sure it continues to grow, how do we make sure that there is still access to capital? How do we make sure that when we think about banking and financial institutions, where there's still so many barriers? It's hard to start and grow a business when we are seeing those barriers, and we need to do more to advocate for some real reforms in those areas in terms of how the regulatory industry and how it's banking is kind of carried out with the cannabis industry. I think we need to look at loans, whether it's SBA loans and other things that there's no access to, and how we can do that. I just think that, we have to be very forward thinking, and we need leaders like me from Illinois. And I say that in honesty because we need people who understand what is possible. What is possible? And not just, as I said earlier, just thinking about, oh no, I don't want to touch that. That's not something that I want to do. But let's tell the story of what happened here in Illinois. And let's talk about the number of entrepreneurs that have been helped, the number of next generation, these businesses that have started and grown, and the access to opportunity and the wealth that's being built. Let's tell that story. And then let's replicate it at the federal level so that we can allow more to experience that in their own states.
Do you think that at the federal level, like what programs do you think at the federal level are best for supporting entrepreneurs? I mean, access to capital is the critical issue for small business development writ large, regardless of industry, but especially in the cannabis industry. Do you think that, like, what programs do you think at the federal level are, you know, the ones that you like to see, that ones you like to be a part of championing, that help provide more greater access to capital?
Well, let me talk about a program that we have here in Illinois, which is our cannabis social equity loans. And that was specifically developed to help communities or people that have experienced higher rates of incarceration to have access to licensing and to loan forgiveness, and just be able to open up pathways. And I think that this is a time where we need to be thinking about every single day how to open up pathways to economic opportunity. And this is one of the ways that we can do that. And we have to be very specific about, who we cannot keep being gatekeepers about who can be in a particular industry, but we have to rather say we want it to be inclusive. So that's an example of what we've done in Illinois, and it's something that I could see, there's a lot of other decisions that have to be made when we talk about the federal level, but, and then I think the other thing is we need some level of economic stability to help everyone. I mean, it's hard in a business environment to try to move forward when you have so much unpredictability. You don't know what to expect day after day. It's impacting everyone's business. So I think that we need to look at what kinds of programs can really connect people to the capital that they need. How can we remove the barriers to being able to run business, not just start the business, but grow the business, connect with other small business owners in particular. I mean, small businesses in so many ways are the lifeblood of our community. You're the ones that are hiring people from within the community. The local economy is circulating. When you open up another business, you usually open it up close by, so it keeps that economy going. So we need to support our small businesses, and that's certainly something that I want to be a part of doing.
So you've got a room of operators, investors, business folks who are in the cannabis industry, many who have been through a lot of ups and downs. It's, I'm sure you've heard on the campaign trail and in your experience as Lieutenant Governor, how hard this business can be, even with the help of the Illinois government. We clearly need more help on a federal level. But with the new cannabis omnibus that was here in Illinois specific, you've really streamlined a lot of regulations. It's really made it easier to be a business person in Illinois. But what would you like investors to know specifically about Illinois, but about what you see as the future of the cannabis industry?
Well, I think that first and foremost, I know that all of you saw the recent legislation here of, when we talk about regulating the hemp industry and the impact that it will have on so many businesses. And really, I think that what we are trying to do is just make sure that we are hearing from you. And like I said before, we don't have all of, it is not perfect by any means. And I think that when you talk about an industry that we have built from the very beginning, there's a real opportunity to think about new entrepreneurs, new people entering the business and entering the industry that will be able to build on the foundation that was set from those of you who were here from the very beginning. So to me, the real message is, what else do we need to do, and how do we make sure that your voices are right at the forefront of helping us to think about that? Where are the key areas where you are continuing to see barriers? What can we do as government to be a partner in helping to remove those barriers and open up pathways to opportunity? And really just making sure that this is known as a, I don't want to call it public-private partnerships so much, but in many ways it's that kind of model that we kind of do it together. And I think that for me, it would be important to continue hearing what you want to see here in Illinois. I know this conference will help you. You probably will have a whole list that you'll be coming up with for us after this.
For sure.
But we welcome those voices, and I think that's with anything. And, even when we think about expanding access through what we talked about, more medical license, like we're doing more to try to create those kinds of opportunities. And that's what we're focused on.
So what are the parts of the parts of your campaign for Senate that you're most excited about? Like what are the things, your plans in the Senate that you like to talk about the most, that make you most excited about this?
I mean, I think I love talking about the fact that in so many ways Illinois is the blueprint about as to what's possible. I mean, we're right here in the Midwest, and we came in saying that we wanted to raise wages, saying that we wanted to expand access to health care, saying that we wanted to create jobs and expand access to opportunity and access to the middle class. And we wanted to protect our rights and our democracy, and we've done that here in Illinois. And so I think what's most exciting to me is that these are things that I have done, and I want to make sure that I continue doing when I get to Washington, D.C. And I think this is the kind of leadership people deserve. It's the kind of leadership people should expect, someone that's going to fight for the people and for all. And to not just, I think so many people right now are feeling frustrated that their voices are not heard, that no matter who's leading, no matter who's in office, their lives aren't getting any better. And I think this is an opportunity to demonstrate that what we've done in Illinois is we've been very specific about if we set a big vision, if we are bold and courageous, that we can get some things done and deliver for people. We've done that here within the legal cannabis industry. We've delivered that. And on so many other issues as well. And now it's time to bring that same kind of vision and leadership to Washington, where people feel like the status quo just isn't working anymore. So I'm glad that my message has resonated during the primary, and now I'm in the general, and I look forward to moving the work forward and winning, by the way.
Cannabis is in the process of being rescheduled on the federal level, which will help. Started under the Biden administration. It's one of the first few things that is being continued under the current administration. There's been other medical things that this administration has done, the Right to Try Act, et cetera. What do you see as the future of medical cannabis in this country? You just mentioned expanding medical access. More people are going to live closer to dispensaries where they can get medicine in Illinois now. Reschedule it now. Theoretically, it's crazy to think about. Cannabis businesses in Illinois that have medical licenses are going to be licensed by the DEA, which is counterintuitive to everything that has happened in the history of the war on drugs, right? So, but it is an opportunity. It is a real patients for the first time will be recognized as being legitimate in the eyes of the federal government. What more do you think we need from a medical perspective, from a medical cannabis perspective? How can we increase? How can we continue? I mean, if you look at the research that's out there, there's so many conditions that cannabis helps with, and it's still being denied by some people. For example, health insurance doesn't pay for it. Where can we go, do you think, on a federal level with medical cannabis? How can we advocate more?
I was going to say that it starts with advocacy, and I know all of you in this room know that. I mean, it starts with education. I mean, don't forget there is still a great deal of stigma, and that is something that really impacts the ability to make some real progress. And so it takes education. It takes making sure that you're showing up in Washington and talking directly to senators and your congresspeople to make sure that they understand how it impacts their communities. I think about when you talk about access, I even think about what happens in our rural communities and people who don't have access to whatever, whether it's healthcare in general, to cannabis and the way that it could treat on a medical basis some of the ailments that they might be facing. And I think the last thing that I think about is how do we make sure that we still center equity at a time where there's an administration that does not want to use that word? And what is going to happen to make sure that it does not continue to be, well, because we can't use that word, I do, but because they don't want to use that word, that even as we see growth or movement, that it's still certain communities being boxed out, because that's what will happen. And so when I talk about the intention on our part here in Illinois, it's because we said, equity is going to be right at the center. So I think that no matter what direction, whether we're talking about on a recreational basis or medicinal basis, we have to make sure that as we talk about business growth and access from a healthcare perspective, that we include that. The insurance issue, that's going to be another, that's a whole different level of conversation. But you can't get there if you don't have people who will trust and believe in the science and trust and believe that this is a real remedy for addressing so much that people are experiencing right now.
Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Sully. And thank you all for having me today.
All right. So that was the speech by the Lieutenant Governor. Just a few questions, and we may actually have somebody call in here in just a moment. Just a few comments I had on the speech, and we actually do have a caller here that I'll have join and here in just a moment. There was conversation about communities that have been on the punitive end and how those R3 funds go to those communities because they've been most harmed by the war on drugs. They mentioned people in communities that have experienced high rates of incarceration due to the war on drugs. Of course, this has been sort of what many people describe as the spirit of the law, righting the wrongs of the war on drugs. There was mention of the fact that 12,000 people were arrested in Pennsylvania, a state that still has not decriminalized cannabis. And before I add our caller on, I will just bring up an article that I published in the past, and we're going to go to a specific section of the article that is drafted, includes information from the Marijuana Policy Project, who released a report examining cannabis arrests across the United States using FBI Crime Explorer data and state-level arrest data compiled by the ACLU. And according to that report, Illinois recorded the highest cannabis arrest rate per capita of any state that has legalized adult use cannabis. Put another way, of the states that have legalized cannabis, Illinois is the only state that actually saw an increase in cannabis arrests. Approximately 15 Illinois residents are arrested for cannabis-related offenses each day. The report further noted that Illinois recorded a higher cannabis arrest rate per capita than 3 states that don't even allow adult use: Hawaii, Florida, and New Hampshire. Of course, Hawaii and Florida have medical. That even kind of adds to my point. We have an arrest rate higher than some states that only allow medical. And so I will say, to the point that the moderator brought up, 12,000 people arrested in Pennsylvania. That is 7,000 more than Illinois had on that same year. So that is notable, but that's to be expected almost from a state, in my opinion, that has legalized adult use. I still just question why Illinois is the only legalization state we've seen an increase in possession arrests since legalization. You'd think that we'd see a decrease with that. Well, I am about to bring my guest on stage. His name is Brad Spirison. He's from grownin.com. And I'm really curious to hear some of his takeaways, if he has any thoughts on anything that I just said, or if he wanted to just, share general thoughts. With that, Brad, welcome back to the show. Can I hear you?
Hi, how you doing?
How's it going? Welcome back.
General Cole here. I am sharing general thoughts.
Yes.
And it was so fun hanging out and seeing you in action and seeing a lot of your readers and hearing everyone talk about all of the value that you're bringing to the community while not taking yourself too seriously, which is a gift.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. I how about this before maybe we have you directly address some of the things I just said, or if you had any thoughts about the Stratton speech. I felt like the optimism in the room, at least from the Illinois operators, but even just other people in the room that weren't from Illinois, was just about as high as we were, Brad. Like, people were in pretty good spirits. Yeah. Oh, they could be higher. Yeah, but what's your take?
I mean, you can go to Ivy Hall. Yeah, I felt that. I mean, again, you don't really know about those conferences until a little bit afterward, but I think just from a actual news standpoint, not that there was necessarily news on stage. There's a lot going on. There's this civil war within cannabis about hemp beverages and THC. Depending on who paid you, you have a very big opinion on that. Sometimes hostily, so which is weird. This is weed. So that's right there, and she's on it, right? I mean, she did Lieutenant Governor Stratton, presumed U.S. Senator replacing Durbin. Her office, if this thing with the hemp really goes down on November 12th, do her and JB play like the last person with their finger on the nose to call Ben Kovler to say, sorry, but your whole Senorita Navy Pier project is not gonna fly?
Right. Well, one of the reactions that I got from an operator on the ground, they asked me that they'll remain nameless, in the spirit of the fact that we were off the record. They said, Cole, what's your reaction to the omnibus? And I said, the hemp language, I think, is the only part that I have an issue with. And they said, well, Cole, that was going to happen anyway. And I said, okay, then why didn't we just let it happen? Why did we have to codify those pending changes into state law when, first of all, there have been several amendments? The White House, even as part of the rescheduling directive, encouraged Congress to revisit the definition of hemp that's set to take place in November. All signs point to the fact that hemp will be redefined before November, but as of yet,
I
that's
think there's
yet to
page
occur.
26 that who told me that I didn't mean to cut you off, but not Cheech Marin or Tommy Chong, but they're two guys from Detroit. They sell Cheech and Chong to everybody that will buy Cheech and Chong. They don't care if it's in a dispensary or in a Benny's. They're smart people. They told me on page 26 of said omnibus, there's some language that indicates that ultimately this could be responsive to where the national wind goes, meaning they're just going to let the feds take care of this.
I hope that's the case, but I heard that the omnibus we actually just played Ali Jubilier's perspective earlier on in this broadcast. So obviously many people have different perspectives, and so we'll just see. But I've heard her perspective is not the only person that I guess I've heard say that actually the standard that Illinois is set to sort of take place in November could in fact be stricter than if the feds do expand the definition of hemp to actually include THC, which it seems like they're going to do, or to have a beverage carve out or whatever the case may be, Illinois law still would be stricter than federal law, and that is not illegal. Like, states are allowed to make the framework stricter.
I'd be that. But what I'm hearing is it's going to happen. There's
Yeah.
a very prominent national. We talked to him. I don't know if we should name drop him, but he actually has money, which is rare for any kind of cannabis VC. Let's just say his firm focuses on hemp and tech. So he's biased, but he's been sending me stuff from the beverage industry for months, talking about a 4 milligram standard from their perspective. So if you're like reading a trade publication and you work at like Miller Coors or Anheuser-Busch or any of those, you're thinking, okay, nothing's certain, but this is probably happening. Like everyone that I know in the beverage industry, which included, of course, a lot of our friends that participated in the Midwest Cannabis Forum last month, are from the beverage industry. And I don't think that they're doing this as a hobby. They're the lot, like, it's huge money. People love to drink weed in 12-ounce increments, perhaps at 4 milligrams at a time. I don't know.
Perhaps at 50 milligrams at a time. I'm just saying, I drank like 3 milligram at 4 actually 50 milligram drinks last night, and I did not die. I'm right here with you, Brad. I feel well.
You're right here with me. Would those be tonics?
No, they're right here. Actually, I got one above my shoulder, but it's this Cantrip. It's 50 milligrams of THC. Yeah,
dude, where'd you get that?
Cantrip. You can use, if you go to cantrip.com/ColeMemo, you can get a 15% discount.
Look at that.
And I get 15% back in-store credit, which I use to buy more Cantrip.
Do you write that off?
I mean, I use it in store credit, so I don't know. I write it off in that way.
You write it off.
Yeah. But anyway, I say that because, and I had a perspective we shared earlier where it really does seem like the concession people are making is like, all right. Hemp for the most part can go away, but what we're gonna keep is low dosed beverages. And I'm just like, I love cannabis in all form factors, so I wish it could all stay. But I hate that everybody is qualifying what is going to stay with low dosed. And I know it's just me, and I know I'm not everybody.
We
But
were talking about that at the buffet.
oh yeah, sorry, I said that to you. Yeah.
No, but you didn't. Now we're talking publicly,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and let's kind of connect it back to the more important stuff that you were talking about before you were kind enough to call me, which is the incarceration and the arrest rates, and
yes,
which are completely fucking preposterous. And if you have someone that should and is the most promising U.S. legislator in cannabis, arguably. I mean, she brags that she was at Sunnyside on January 1st, 2020. It's part of her shtick. Talk about that. What are you doing for that?
Right.
And they've done a good job, but that's not that they're not done. And if we're ticking worse, who's that ultimately on?
Yeah, well, and credit where credit is due. She did admit, there's much more to be done. But the one thing, to your point, that I feel is missing from the conversation, and I appreciate you for bringing it back around to this specific topic because it's the one I care most about. When they mentioned that this was done to right the wrongs, when this was done to help certain communities, when you really look at state data and see that, first of all, these cannabis arrests still continue in those communities. And so when you talk about righting the wrongs, it's like, how are we going to right those wrongs?
Exactly. And, which brings us to, the information marketplace. I think you've chronicled some of your challenges getting journalistic access to said elected official. I was also blocked, but I texted one of the moderators a question, and his boss told me that it was a good one. The whole world right now is looking at the south side of Chicago today because one of its pioneers, is having a big day. Who's president and all. How many licensed dispensaries are near there? I could think of the original.
How about I just show you state data?
Yeah, man. No, I can tell you from my head and biking around. It's Michigan or Mission on South Shore. And then you got a little bit of a gap. I told Mr. Bachtel that it was a doobie desert, and he laughed because he agrees. He knows it, and this is good marketing for all of us.
Where? Okay. I was gonna say which is that the right here? Is that the one you're talking about? This little triangle?
It must be. I never could read no roadmap. Hold on. Okay. I mean, it's a forefront, and forefronts are in receivership.
The point is,
look at that. There's no weed where like this is going to be the biggest tourist destination in Illinois for the rest of 2026. This was written on social equity. I applaud them. But 7 years in, when you're all on stage celebrating, from a cannabis perspective, that's a failure with a PH and an F.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I just want to, if folks are looking at the video, all these blue, so these triangles are where the dispensaries are. All of these blue dots, which you can see, there's a lot of them. That's where the arrests continue, and you'll notice they're where the triangles aren't, and you'll notice it's the south and west sides of Chicago, which have always historically borne the brunt of the war on drugs, for lack of better words.
Bluntly, black people.
Thank you. Yeah. Again, happy Juneteenth. This is really an extension of the civil rights movement. And that's why I say that, because we have to remind ourselves that where this started was with civil rights and the anti-war movement. The government was looking for a way to criminalize both black people and people that were, anti-war, the hippies, right? And how do you do that? Well, let's just criminalize the molecules they have in their pocket, or they might have in their pocket.
Let's bringing it back to, regardless of what you feel about the gentleman ideologically, it is an Illinois success story that, someone could come here, in 85 with like all of his belongings in the car and then become president of the United States. There is an arc symbolically and literally on the grounds of Jackson Park right now, next to the Obama Center, that reminds us that the arc of history is not always clear, but it ultimately bends toward justice. So let's shout out, like big wins. Like you and I would do these Benzinga Ignite IT things, and we get into the weeds on the Illinois stuff and everything else. You could on the medical front, the gears are beginning to awaken in terms of what we as a society can do when we bring the scientists in to survey all the sensimilla and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. And just to quickly close the criminalization topic, before
Yeah.
I want to get your take on other topics in the room. One of which you just brought up. Just to be fair, and in the name of giving credit where credit is due and celebrating our wins, overall in 2024, arrests remained approximately 88% lower than in 2016 when we decriminalized small amounts of cannabis. However, the arrests that do continue, 57.5% of those arrests were for Black or African American people, compared to 28.7% who are white. So we still see the disparity. The arrests continue. 2024 was the first year-over-year increase. I will say I brought that up at the conference, and that I actually do expect that we could see another increase this year, because in the Illinois State Police report, they said one of the complications that's preventing them from pursuing arrests for cannabis is that people are claiming that it's hemp, and they have no way of determining whether it is or isn't. The fact that that has stopped police from pursuing cannabis arrests, I call a win. But and I have concerns, I guess, since we just saw an increase this year. Could we see another increase? Because they say this is complicating enforcement. So just a very, it's a topic that I'm personally super passionate on. And I guess, again, just to close the loop, I did get a chance to ask the governor or lieutenant governor a question regarding that topic. And unfortunately, I ran into her as she was going to her car.
You literally ran into it.
Pretty much. Almost. I actually almost ran into her. I turned around and she was like right there. And I had my camera already going, pre-recording, because I thought there was a chance. I was down in the smoking section. And I did ask, why does the state of Illinois have more arrests than other states that have legalized, and even, a few that haven't? And admittedly, that is a very nuanced question to ask on the way back to her car. So she politely asked me to refer to her assistant to get a card and set up some time to have a further conversation, which I actually appreciate as an answer instead of like just going off the hip if she's not aware of it. I hope that my question made her aware of it if she wasn't aware of it. And I look forward to potentially setting up time with her. I do realize she's going to be super busy, so I, whether or not that actually happens, but maybe they.
Part of her job is to report back to journalists. You
Yeah,
know,
maybe they remember because yeah,
whatever extent she runs, well, who knows how much pot will be part of her portfolio, but she's pretty chummy with that crew. It looked like,
yeah.
I mean, they blackball us and whatnot. I don't know.
She did mention she wants to push for it at a federal level, so and take
Yeah.
those lessons from Illinois. But anyway,
And Durbin, who
yeah.
she's replacing, is like neutral at best. And people were telling me exactly, kind of hesitant, kind of like Biden, perhaps he could have had some like family history in the matter, which makes you less enthusiastic. Whereas again, yeah, she was there. She was in Wrigleyville at Sunnyside, bright and early or late, whenever they opened the thing up. And, that was part of her shtick.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we displayed the pictures earlier, so credit where credit is due. That's pretty cool to have because a lot of these politicians they'll take a picture with a beer and stuff, but to have one that does a photo op with cannabis, like credit where credit is due.
No,
I'm all for normalizing cannabis.
we're all in that, particularly normalizing cannabis. It's also really exciting on this vein. Wednesday, I know you probably had to go back home downstate, but the first dispensary in the actual loop within the city of Chicago opened its doors. Bud and Rita's, they're part of the Nature's Grace company family. I think they got 9 open right now. Downstate it used to be Trinity, maybe. Here it was okay cannabis. I say okay because they had an exclamation point. And their own that they rebranded, and they're right in there. They're right in the middle of the loop in the theater district. Open in the morning. You know, it's of course there's like a Lollapalooza play, there's a Millennium Park play, there's a tourism play. But you know what? There's got to be a day to day loop play because like if you're going to the loop, let's just say a 20 something, 30 something, 40 something, or even 50 something. Um, you're not necessarily like working in a cubicle all day. You're doing something. So like they're trying to get people back in the city. They're doing more collaboration, this and that. Like perhaps some of the ideation sessions that a lot of these companies charge a lot of dollars per hour for um, could be enhanced by legally getting like a 2.5 milligram or whatever it takes and more if you need it. So I like what they're doing there. The alderman who might be running for mayor, so doing the ribbon cut, and God bless them all. I mean they're have not. They're part of the old G regime that has not always made things easy for some of the folks that came in after them. But this is capitalism, ultimately, and I know a lot of great work this particular organization does. Um, but just whatever from like a signal perspective, we have weed in the loop, Madison and Clark, next to the Chase Tower. It's awesome. Never, I didn't think I don't. It's a landmark in at least in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what were some other takeaways you had from the conference, Brad? I'll just
International,
international. Okay.
international. I think. Uh, I think I do think that like a switch has gone on with um, the occupant of the Oval Office's enthusiasm advancing um, law toward lids. Rescheduled medical, I think, is bringing other people in, paying more attention. It's inevitable that this is going to be global someday. Like what people like enough areas know about. Like it is global. Who's going to write the rules and where? I'm taking a real close look at Southern Europe. I'm Greek. A lot of people are saying that um, Greece is kind of like the Humboldt County of Europe, you know, or even Albania, which I think does things more on what one would probably describe as the illicit sense. Um, some really interesting stuff there. There's a lot of Greek cannabis know-how here in Chicago, and I'm on this. I'm literally on the Athens to Chicago Sister Cities Committee through an organization called World Business Chicago, and I'm their weed guy.
Nice. So how much do you just like give them weed, or I'm joking?
No, but I like if there's a junket, I'm all over it. I'll bring you.
Hey, yeah, I was gonna say. There we go. Any Illinois specific takes that you took away? I mean, look, they mentioned the
I almost
omnibus.
people like you. I addressed some adversity, if not hostility, within the ignited environment, which includes the conference, the after stuff, this and that, on multiple occasions. Had some Illinois operators that I thought I was friends with, bitching about the Salvage One event, inviting the hemp community to come, thinking that like they're the enemy and evil and this and that. Like, so there's just a lot of like pissiness around that. And like, I don't weed. I'm a lover, not a fighter. But if someone says that Cronin is somehow like, they were basically disparaging the event because we included hemp, and it's my responsibility to ask more questions to understand how they come to that point of view. And you ask 3, 4, 5 questions, and some of them want to punch you in the face.
Yeah, I mean, I hear people use the analogy of Uber and taxis a lot. Have you heard that analogy?
So there would be some sort of marijuana medallion. That's what you're saying.
No, like
I'm
the
joking.
contempt. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I get it.
Okay.
So what? We're all gonna use Lyft, pretend like we're good people, even though it's like GM.
Well, what I'm saying is that the taxi drivers, in this case, the cannabis licensees in the state of Illinois under the CRTA, they feel cheated because they paid for their medallion, and then these other people just got a smartphone and started doing Uber and Lyft.
Great analogy. That's great. So,
In other words,
I'd be pissed
if I
too.
could say real quick, nobody's doing anything illegal per se. You can hail a ride from a smartphone. You can buy some gummies at or a drink at the United Center, right? None of it's illegal. They just fall under different regulatory frameworks.
It's unfair, completely unfair.
But no, it's not though, because GTI is a perfect example of somebody who plays both sides of it, and so it's absolutely fair.
Well, it's fair if you're it's fair if you're a sky out of a multi-generational liquor company who's really, really smart dude.
Hold
Is it
on,
fair?
but there are social equity operators that do it too.
I know, and they're all getting screwed. Name me one social equity operator that you think's happy.
The one that I'm referencing that does both hemp and cannabis, because they tell me they fund their cannabis operation with the money they're making from hemp, because they don't have to pay for security, they don't have to have a ridiculous vault, they don't have purchase limits at all. So forget just selling 60 grams to somebody. And they say they have basically financed their cannabis operation because it's hard to make money there with their hemp operation. And so I think you maybe
No,
misunderstood.
I'm persuaded.
No, I think you just misunderstood me, because when people say it's unfair, I'm like, but hold on, no, it is fair. The thing that's unfair is actually the CRTA. The CRTA is what's unfair. Hemp's not unfair.
Yes.
You know,
It's unfair. I mean, it's unfair to those who came in 19
I
and
agree.
said,
I do agree with
like
that.
with that,
Yeah.
you're going to do this, governor, and everyone's this is going to be generational wealth, blah 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 blah. Blah. And then that didn't happen, and I would say a significant percentage of social equity operators, whether you're a craft grow infuser, dispensary, transporter, even lab, even educator, are broke. 95% of them or they're selling out to the biggies. And in the CROO, which I think is both an entity and an individual, um, doesn't, I mean, like they're, it's happening right in front of us.
Yeah. No, well, so what I'm trying to blend right now are two concepts that we've not only discussed right here in this show, but that we've discussed for years, which is that the concept of limited licensing, which is the promise of intergenerational wealth, is the reason that the criminalization of cannabis continues, right? And so when people say, like, this is unfair, that hemp's unfair, it's like, no, the CRTA is unfair, and to promise intergenerational wealth based on limited licensing, you're basically saying, well, we must continue criminalization. It's not really saying this, but just hear me out here, and correct me if I'm wrong. But you're basically saying we must continue criminalization in a limited form in order to keep prices high. In other words, we're trying to preserve prohibition era pricing. Perhaps when cannabis is an open market, the price just naturally falls. Haven't you noticed that that's the conversation about licensing all the time? It's like, well, if we issue too many licenses, how are people going to make money? It's like, figure it out. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. I mean, I think, and these are all good people around. Like, I don't mean to disparage like these individuals or organizations, this and that.
I'm not disparaging anybody. I'm just
But yeah, that's what you just pointed out is the reality, and uh, so I think we just need to rewrite the book. What are you doing in October?
I'm going to the Grown In event. That what date is that?
That would be October 8th.
October
And
8th.
we're gonna have, I guess, many streams to it. It's a cannabis harvest for the many among us that are just in the industry and want to get smarter, want to meet people. I don't care.
Can I
Like,
bring my cannabis harvest? I should be harvesting just around then.
I mean, that's
I'm
kind
joking.
of it. Well, it's I mean, we're in conversations with all the municipalities, and you know how I've been sweet talking the Illinois folks just now about what we can and cannot do on the 2700 block of West Roscoe and Avondale, between the river and an empanada's place at a place called Sarah Bond, where it has bud tender events at night. And we're going to have a whole daytime event. And there'll be a lot of programming, there'll be a lot of networking, there'll be a lot of entertainment. It's a whole block that is not very, shall we say, trafficked. It's just one block, kind of nestled, really, or at least that's how I consider it. And there's nothing there but like the river, and a couple of blocks of the river where you can walk and talk and leverage a harvest, if you will.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll talk more about that in another
Yeah,
show. We'll make
but
sure to
no, the
promote that.
Congress part, the figuring it all up part is actually part of the story. The government, whether it's city, state, federal, not going to figure it out by itself because they don't give a shit. There's more important things to them than weed right now. So it's incumbent upon us stakeholders, which could be individuals in government who care, alongside the industry, alongside higher education, alongside culture, alongside health, research to convene together to do the work for the lawmaker, draw up something to say, yeah, we actually can hatch this out. This is what it should look like. Stamp it. Don't deliberate. Let's go and get on with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm excited for it. Again, we'll give it more focus in a future episode where we can just kind of promote it and talk all about it, especially as it goes closer to date too. I'm looking forward to it. Any other takeaways, Illinois-based takeaways? Did you have conversation with licensees? Did you get some general vibe?
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if you tuned in earlier.
I got a good walk and talk with Reese. He's getting ready to open. This is Reese Xavier, one of the OGs. Crest helped him a lot, and this and that. See some of the retailers. Edie Moore knows what she's doing. It sounds like she's understanding how to sell weed to the people through her sleigh, and that's a beautiful thing. Again, it's hard. It's very, 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 very hard. But what do we call it? An inch of daylight. Sometimes you just need an inch of daylight. You can run through and score.
Well said. Yeah, the one thing I found interesting, and I mentioned it earlier on in the show, so if folks are still tuned in, we've got about 30 people tuned in. Drop your comments if you have any questions or if you had any observations that we didn't cover yet. One thing that I thought was super interesting is that I could not get a clear answer from licensees. One of the main components of the omnibus was that all adult use dispensaries could get medical licenses, and I asked a variety of licensees both on and off the record, and I got answers ranging from, and this is what I thought, I'll start with this first one, that they could opt to get licenses for free, but that there would be a process for it. And that process would have to be like drafted through IDFPR rules, and that could take a bit, admittedly, because it's just
Is Vaughn still on that?
Not sure. I'll have to reach out to them to sort of see.
Like a workshop. They should do a workshop for you. Let them know you have an audience. Like this is what you need to do. This if it's a why. So that's good to know, and I'm glad you're on that.
Yeah. So some people. The point is, people can watch earlier on in the show. People don't know the answer. Some people are saying it may cost money. Some people are saying no. All we have to do is adjust our POS, point of sale. But that does not make sense to me, Brad, because it's not just the taxes that are important to track when you're selling to medical patients. It's also the allotment, and that goes to the Department of Health. Versus adult use sales, which are not saved, which are not, tracked in any sort of database. And that's a very important distinction.
Speaking of the Department of Health, the Illinois Department of Health oversees the Cannabis Research Institute, which I believe is on like a 3-year deal, and they're 2 years into it. But they're at the University of Illinois at Chicago, and there is now federal attention to cannabis. So as somebody that I think has an ounce or so of involvement in that organization, I'm hopeful that they're going to find ways to work with the state and the community at large to diversify resource inputs in a way that maintains the ethics that any kind of research institute should provide. So that's like Justin. We met and have you interviewed Reggie yet?
Justin's been on the show several times. Reggie, we've talked through email. We haven't had him on the show yet.
I used to work around the corner from him.
Nice.
Hallway. Yeah,
I've been invited to be. I've been invited to participate in the Cannabis Research Institute, so definitely in contact with a lot of those folks.
They were definitely in Champaign, so I don't it's malpractice. It's malpractice. They went to Champaign and they didn't call you.
No, they did. They did, and I accepted the invite and completely forgot about it. I actually had a date on my calendar.
Well, it's malpractice. You forgot about it. That's good shit. They didn't call me.
Oh man. Yeah, no, they called me and I had the date marked off on my calendar, but that's all I did. I just X the date out, which I was basically like, don't schedule anything that day because you have something important that day. I did not write down what that was, and I was like trying to figure it out the night before, couldn't figure it out until the
It's
end of the
important.
day. I was like, dang, I missed it.
It's important. There's a lot of trials and tribulations, with like not only being a state entity, but a university entity and this and
Yeah.
that. They're still pushing. And there's a lot. I mean, I talked to so many people that knew I was involved with that thing that wanted to know more about it, and I'm not hearing anything. So I'm hopeful, but they're well positioned, and they're a big story too. In terms of the operators, I'm not sure what they do. I mean, they certainly do medical, they do agricultural, and then they have some surveys and charts about social equity. Not unclear what they're doing in that regard as it relates to a licensed retailer.
You know what I do like that they're doing is that they are since I workshop some ideas, they are kind of tracking, from what I can gather, the continued criminalization of cannabis and the impact on it, which is again just something I'm super passionate about, and I just want people to be aware of. And so, tracking the data is the best way to do that. So, shout out to the Cannabis Research Institute for gathering feedback and taking it into consideration. And with that, any other takeaways from Ignite It, man?
I mean, parties again. I do, and I talked with Patrick Lane, one of the hosts of this venture. I think they're a private equity venture. Um, and he agrees that it's poor etiquette for any organization to have their own commercial convening, if you will, within the couple of days of one at Ignited or any other conference or Avondale kind of thing. Coordinate directly with the organizers, show some etiquette, because what happens is you get a lot of you get a lot of cool events to go to. I get it, and as a consumer, it's great, but like you don't it fractures what you're trying to do, and then as someone that puts together events, the margins are not always forgiving. When you get professional services companies or M&A people or whatever that charge a lot of money to these service providers, but then forget to pay the folks in the media that's putting it all together. So it's my pet project to see what the proper etiquette is on such an arrangement moving forward. And Patrick, and I know George at Unpacked and others feel the same way.
Yeah, keep me posted on that. I'm looking to learn more and definitely interested to hear what you learn. So,
Very good,
well,
my friend. Well, what a week.
yeah,
Awesome hanging.
I found a lot of value in it. Thank you, Brad, for always being kind and saying hi and getting high with me. I do appreciate you.
It is
And
my
so,
job, but I love doing it, my friend.
yeah, yeah. Well, again, it was so great to see you. Thank you for calling into the show, and keep in touch.
Very good. Happy weekend. Happy Juneteenth.
Yes, take care. All right, folks. Well, we'll continue the show. We're going to wrap up because we're just at about 2 hours and 53 minutes. That's kind of wild. I think we just got a comment in. Satisfied Mind says, thanks, Brad. Brad just headed out, but I'm sure he'll see that comment after the fact. So, yeah, absolutely. So, I appreciate you all for listening. I'll probably re-release this as the Illinois part as a standalone episode since we're just at about 3 hours. The first like 42 minutes of the show, roughly, were federal. It was federal coverage, and I've been off air for a while, so I wanted to get back on and share some things because I'm like in information debt to you all. So if you don't follow me on Patreon, I encourage you to. I especially encourage you to become a paid member for at least this month because I do plan to release an exclusive video that I did not cover in this episode, but definitely sort of made a mention of it. And So check that out. I don't usually like to put things behind a paywall, but when you see it, you'll understand why I'm doing what I'm doing with regard to that. And, ultimately, I always release all of my content for free, but there's just considerations that have to be made. So, well, we are going to wrap up the show with that. If you're still listening, I just want to remind you all that you can find the show notes, generally speaking, in the description of whichever episode you're listening from. The reason I say generally speaking is because if you are one of the 30 plus people that are tuned in right now, I don't upload the show notes while I'm live. I upload them after the fact. So if you're checking this out now and you want to see some of the links we mentioned in the show, because we mentioned a lot of links in the show. I know we had a lot of exclusive content, but we also mentioned a lot of links and sourced a lot of things, both from thecolememo.com, but from places like marijuanamoment.net and even like CBS News or something like that. I'll try to put all those links in the show notes. I try to do my best to make sure to include all the links that are referenced so that you can do your own reading and come to your own conclusions and all of those good things. Well, on that note, I hope you enjoyed this live to tape broadcast of the Cole Memo. If you did, please be sure to hit the like button. Let me check one more time just to make sure nobody from Twitter has commented, because there's this weird like glitch I get sometimes, like, or I don't know if people are responding wrong. Oh, look here. Nope. Never mind. Nobody commented on Twitter. There was one comment on Twitter earlier. And I believe it's somebody that I was thinking about because I saw they posted a comment where they were going through something. Mitch, I don't know if you're still watching, but he said, "I wish I ran into you, Cole, at the conference." He said, "Doing a great job." Mitch, I hope you're doing well. I hope all is well with you. I saw last week you mentioned I think it was you, that you might be going through some health stuff. So apologies for bringing that up, but that's all to say that wanted to let you know that I, was thinking about you. So I hope all is well. All right. With that, let me just check my notes. I think I covered everything. Apologies if the show moved at a little bit slower of a pace today. Admittedly, not that you guys, I don't mean to get too personal, but not in a great headspace right now, but I wanted to get this information out. Some of this information that I've kind of had on a backlog. And I think we covered everything. Yeah, I wanted to get everything out. And so I apologize if the pacing of the show is a little bit slower. I kind of have been, I didn't sleep well at all. And like I said, wanted to get some information out to the listeners because I've been off for the past couple of weeks. By the way, if you missed the memo, we go live every Tuesday, 7:15 p.m. Central Time, unless announced otherwise. We've been off the last like 2 weeks. So like I say, I've kind of run into some information debt. So this is a nice way to get my mind off of things. And like, also, like I said, I had some stuff to get out. I really hope you enjoyed the like exclusive speech from the lieutenant governor that I played. I thought that was super interesting. I always think it's really awesome when public officials talk about Illinois cannabis policy. And I really hope that I'm able to connect with Lieutenant Governor, potentially Senator Stratton. We'll see. It was cool to actually get a contact card. So we'll see if we can actually book time or at least get some sort of response to what I specifically asked about, which is why arrests continue in Illinois more than other states that have legalized, and even some that haven't. Now that I recall, I don't know that I mentioned that last part because I was she started to say, "I'm sorry, I gotta if you ask for my card, I can, kind of get back to you." And so I didn't finish my question. But I think that's how it went down. But I definitely asked why arrests continue more in the state of Illinois. And so I hope that that sort of registered with her and maybe she looks into it at the very least. And if not, I hope that we can get in contact. That would be like really cool. But yeah, Miggy, happy Juneteenth. It's good to see you. Congrats on the upcoming grand opening. Tom sent me the info. I'm going to try to be there. I don't know if you're going to be there, but I'm really excited. And if you're just tuning in, you may go back. I'm also going to try to re-release this Illinois talk as a standalone episode if I can get some time and bandwidth to focus on that. But that's the plan. So either rewind this live stream or watch when I release this as a standalone segment, because I had some different licensees responses to the passage of the omnibus, and the joke I was making is that the optimism in the room was, and the spirit in the room was almost as high as I was. And I say that jokingly, but also seriously. Like, people seem to have a renewed sense of optimism in the Illinois cannabis industry as a result of the passage of the omnibus and the rescheduling directive, and how those may interplay to give some relief to some of the punitive measures that have come with the Schedule 1 status of cannabis, but also relief in the form of the easing of some burdensome regulations at the state level and all that good stuff. So Miggy says he'll be there. He also says, looking forward to meet you in real life. One plant, one market. It is inevitable. Absolutely. Well, all right. On that note, this was a long live stream, but again, we had to catch up and I needed to escape. So come with me and escape, right? What is that, pina colada? So I hope you found value in this live stream. And once again, if you did, hit that like button. And folks, happy Friday, happy Juneteenth. Have a great weekend. It's summer. I think Tom Angel from marijuanamoment.net said it's a hot cannabis summer, and I cannot agree more. It's been a really exciting summer for cannabis policy. Of course, I want a lot, but to see any movement at all is just cool. So this summer's for the history books, folks. On that note, I really hope that you all found value in this episode of
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
I mean, you have to respect the memo.